And welcome to another episode of Experts Speak. I'm Michael DeLon, and today I am here with Jill Pollard. Jill, welcome to Experts Speak. Thank you for taking some time just to be with me.
Thank you for having me.
Well, you are welcome. You are in for a treat today because Jill and I are, we're in Strategic Coach together. And so we've met each other in the last few months. And we were sitting at one of our Strategic Coach meetings, and she had this amazing idea to come on my podcast and do things differently, just shake things up. And so instead of doing my typical thing where I'm asking her just to share and share and share, we're gonna try to discover what's deep inside of Jill and get
Oh
her.
my God, my
Yes.
cat. Can you hear Mike? My cat.
No, I love cats.
Oh my gosh, sorry. If he
Bring him
keeps
on.
going, I'm
That's
so
okay.
sorry.
No, that's great. That's the beauty of at-home work, right?
I know, right?
I was doing an interview one time, and the cat walked right in front of the camera, and the person was like,
On the
"Wow,
desk.
it's
I
okay."
got
You know,
cats, I got dogs. We could have a whole circus.
that's right. This is what we do. So let's talk. So Jill is you've got 2 or 3 businesses. You help
Yeah.
business owners you help coach them, and I want to know a little bit about that business,
Yeah.
and that's where we're going to kind of focus everything. So let's start with this. How did you get doing what you're doing in that coaching business? And then we'll dive into background and everything, but talk a little bit about your coaching business. Like, who do you help and what transformations are there? But how'd you get doing that?
Yeah. I kind of grew up with a really heavy burden of like depression and really having that weight of kind of that mental health barrier between life and my happiness and the ability to be able to like function fully. But on the outside, I always looked like a really bright, shiny, expressive person. But I was always dealing with all of these internal demons, which I think everybody has. We all have like limiting beliefs and parts of us that are just hard, and we're hard on ourselves. And I was just like particularly hard on myself. And, through all the young years, I don't think I understood exactly how the brain worked and how the nervous system worked and how my body was communicating with everything. And it really took this journey of self-exploration, of discovery, of honestly learning tools and processes and internal work that got me to a point of freedom where I could truly like be myself and do what I wanted to do in life and really express myself the way I wanted to and experience my businesses, my friendships, my whatever in their full capacity. Because as a human being that practiced a lot of like people pleasing behaviors, it made it hard for me to like exist in the world with like strength, because I was always like watching out for what people needed and reading emotions. And so through these processes, I started to understand how the mind body connection works and how mind, body, soul, all of that is a big part of who we are. And it's not just one thing, it's not just the other thing. And being able to first self like discover and learn it, and then realizing that I actually had a gift in it, like a gift in the reason I was so sensitive and even holding a lot of like depression and people's feelings in my body was that I have like spiritual gifts, I have energy gifts that I was using without knowing they existed. So through all of that, like 15 years of self-discovery, of studying, of learning about like what these gifts are and what they mean, I realized I could help other people. And so my coaching business, my intuitive work is revolving around exactly where a person is, right? So they come into a session, they come into a coaching thing, and they are, maybe having a relationship issue. They're having an issue where they really want to start a business, but they're too scared. They're having blocks when it comes to money or whatever thing is coming up. So usually, we're working through life and we've got something going on. And my gift lies in being able to like tap into like their energy body and realize that like it's not just a brain block and barrier. Oftentimes it's rooted in like a limiting belief, a part of them from the past that is irritating the moment, right? So if we were raised in a household that really had limiting beliefs about money and that you shouldn't be rich, and that, maybe it's a religious part of your upbringing, and you're not only having it echo a little bit in your head, you also have it stored usually somewhere in your body. And so the communication highway between the body and the brain is creating these barriers and blocks for your clarity, because usually I feel like the divine and the parts of us that are here to live our like brightest expression, they are harbored and anchored by how we were raised, by the things we thought, you know, this is how the world's supposed to work. But you have this dream inside where you're like, no, but I'm supposed to be really rich. Or like, I don't know what your dream is, right? But you kind of like have to fight against like what was and what your dream is. And so I'm there to navigate you through how to clear out the body and the nervous system so that your dreams and your visions for your business, for your life, for your partnerships, for whatever the heck it is. And I find in my work that once you just even remove a little root, you take something out that's blocking you, doors open like crazy. And so it's a little bit of a process of spiritual work, energy work, where you're dropping somebody into that limiting belief and clearing it with them through like a meditation or they're very aware of what it is too. Like the moment you drop in, they usually have like these crazy thoughts like, oh my God, my dad always said this phrase, or, you know, I dated this guy who always was so mean about me shopping, or I don't know, it can be anything.
Yeah.
But once we get into the body, it's like the body knows. Have you ever heard of that book, The Body Keeps the
Keep
Score? Yeah.
Absolutely. I was just getting ready to talk about that.
Yeah, stuff like that. And so my gift lies in my particular abilities, like my spiritual abilities to help you so that we don't have to problem solve just through thinking. I can drop into the body with you and see these like visions and parts that we're going to work through. Because sometimes the thing you think that's the problem, there's something right below that we actually need to look at to like clear it out. So that's kind of the how I got into it, coaching side of things.
That's very good. So who's a typical client for you? Are you working with like executives or business owners or just people, or does it matter?
It doesn't matter. I mean, every human being is facing their limits all the time. I definitely prefer and love working with people who have big dreams and big visions and like really want to overcome their obstacles because they know this thing is supposed to come through. But this work is for everyone. Like, I mean, I started from a, you know, very young age with that depression and being able to make these discoveries. That's how I got to like owning 3 businesses and you know, doing all the things that I'm here to do.
Right.
But you know, this work is for everyone, but my passion is those that have big vision, that usually like lead businesses or have, I don't know, just ambition, you know? It's fun to help them clear the blocks to get there.
And that's good, because what we're going to talk about is how this is accessible to everybody, because so many times, and I think that's one thing I loved about that book that you mentioned, The Body Keeps the Score, is you read that. And I mean, I've got 2 adopted daughters in the house, and that was really just eye-opening to me. And then I went, oh, that applies to me too. Oh, it applies to all of my friends. It just everything that I mean, that was the first time I'd ever heard anybody really make that connection in that sort of way.
I know.
And it's, I mean,
Nuts.
so, and when you talk about, you know, faith background and religion and all that, because I'm a follower of Christ, and it's like, well, that's just woo-woo stuff, and that's bad, and it's like, no, let's, I mean, God made this
It's
whole
literally
thing.
part of like the nervous system and the science of the body's communication pathways. And, you know, and sometimes even like the beautiful words, like as someone who doesn't practice that way, but the beautiful words of scripture and God sometimes get misinterpreted or hit a wound from a human being experience. And we hold and harbor that God doesn't love us or whatever we feel like it is, when it was a moment in childhood where you like got in trouble, or you like, you know, and it's just the body remembering a shutdown and it forgot to blossom and open back up. But it's all possible to like clear all of that so that your faith can be strong, so that your business can take off, so that your relationship with your partner can feel cohesive and safe and like all of that. So yeah.
That's cool. Okay. All right. Well, let's do this. Let's back up a little bit. Tell me about growing up years. Tell me about your family, its family size, where'd you live, things of that nature. Give me a story around your family.
I grew up in Redmond, Washington, which I loved and adored. And I have 4 siblings. So there was 5 of us kids. I'm the youngest of the siblings, and then I was the youngest of my 3 older siblings. And then when I was 14, my parents adopted my little sister. So she's made us complete. But gosh, what do you want to know? I mean, I grew up very religious and in a faith, and um I don't know. I think I really struggled to know who I was when I was younger. Like I had things that I liked and things that I was into, but I was always, and I think that was the spiritual gift side of me where I have like a really high sensitivity level. And I didn't have anyone describe it to me. Like, it was always like, oh, Jill, stop crying. You're so sensitive. But I had this awareness of how people were feeling and how I like would monitor a room and make sure like whatever. And I think that was what kind of triggered the teenage years of some of the depression and some of the confusion I would feel and some of the like whatever, which led to this beautiful path of work that I do now.
Yeah.
But I, grew up playing sports. I was a big soccer player, always excelled in school, I kind of just followed the rules to kind of make sure that I got by. I don't think I realized like how ambitious of a person I was, or that I wanted more than just my religion really promoted being like a mother and staying home. And so I got married at 19. I'm still with my partner. We've been married for 17 years, and then we have 3 kids. And I did dive headfirst into that, like got married and then had my first kid by 20, and spent my young adulthood raising my babies and was a stay-at-home mom with them, and really enjoyed the actually just like learning so much about unconditional love and what that means and what it's like to that was actually my eye-opening point in my life, was when I had my first baby, was that I got to question the way, I was raised, or what my parents said was true, or what church said was true, so that I could really love this human being in front of me. And I read a book called Unconditional Love. It's a parenting book. And it really blew my mind open to the beauty of having this human being in my possession as an infant, right? I have to care for them. What it means to unconditionally love somebody, and what it means to hold boundaries, but also give and take. And so through all those years are probably my most formative, because I was still pretty childlike being 20, having my first baby, and not, only having a job or two. I had been in art school at the time, actually. So I had gone from high school, got married, and then went into art school. Which then is just crazy that I've become this insane entrepreneur, and I have like 2 brick and mortars that are physical businesses. And then I do this coaching and all this stuff. But I think having kids what healed me, was what allowed me to understand my relationship to another human being. It was almost like when I was having a really bad day, why was my son having a really bad day too? Like, why are we matching? Like, why are we like feeding off of each other, right? And it seems so obvious. Like, of course, kids are, you hear that, especially these days, like, oh, the kids can feed off of the parents, or you can feed off the kid too, right? But I was learning all of these things, not only about my gifts, but about relationships, and how, being with somebody all day long, what are your boundaries? What are you okay with? What are you not okay with? And honestly, my last child, my third, he like screamed me out of the house. He cried so much that he was like, I have come to make sure that you do what you're supposed to do here. And so I got my first job, which was at an acai bowl place, which is one of the businesses I have now. My second job was working at a boutique, which is my other business. So like, I feel like those processes of self-exploration while being a mom. I am an avid reader, an avid learner. I study, student at heart, like really love, if a book's going to give us a prompt, like I'm going to practice it just to see how it resonates, whether that tool is going to work for me. And so through all those years of raising my kiddos, my youngest is like 10 now. I have like 10, 13, and 15-year-old. They taught me so much. And then I moved into being a business owner, where you have employees and you have big vision and you have all of these like sides of you that I didn't even know existed. Like 19-year-old Jill, who got married, had no idea she would be living in this place, doing this thing. We even lived in Kauai for 7 years, and took our family and uprooted and moved there. And so much healing and experience happened. And I do believe like nature is a beautiful place to find your relationship to the divine. And so, we were outside a lot in Hawaii, and I don't know. We
That's
lived outside even like on this porch. It was amazing.
yeah.
Yeah, there's lots of good stories if you want
Tell
them.
me, why in the world would you live on a porch if you're in Hawaii?
Because the weather's so good and you can. We had this like really big Sibley tent that had all our beds in it. And then we had an outdoor kitchen and an outdoor living room. I should send you
Yeah.
a photo. It was insane.
Yeah.
Um, because we bought property and we weren't ready to build because like the design wasn't done. And then we built a house and we still have it, but it's over in Kauai. And
That's
yeah,
awesome.
so
Yeah, we'll have to take I've been wanting to take my wife to Hawaii. Maybe I'll just go and live outside
heck
on your
yeah.
porch for a couple
Heck yeah.
weeks.
Well, now it's a normal house. Don't worry. It's got
Oh,
doors and
okay, you
windows
got
and
indoor
whatever. It's
plumbing
not
and
the porch
everything now.
anymore. It's a whole house.
Okay, tell me, why do you live where you live now? Where do you live?
Okay. So after actually moving to Kauai for 7
Yeah.
years, I think it was hard to feel at home there. I, again, just as a highly sensitive person and my environment is really important to me. I think living that way, living on Hawaii was really, really fantastic for my healing. But then I was kind of getting that 7-year itch, ready to move. And one of the places we had considered before moving to Hawaii was Chelan, Washington, which is where I live now. And I grew up coming here my whole life, and it was like one of our, vacation summer places. And my favorite place on earth is what I've always said. And when we were living on Hawaii, visiting Chelan, I was like, I think we were visiting Chelan for the 4th of July. And I was like, honey, we should move here and open an acai bowl shop. And he's like, okay. And so I'm not one to stall, and I'm a like pretty fast pursuer. And I was like, if this is like, it was coming together, like the idea of this business was coming together so quickly, it almost was like startling. Like I was like, there's no way it's this easy. And I was like, if this is what I'm meant to do, then things will fall into place and it will work. And I mean, I don't know how much you want of that story, but it fell into place in the craziest way. Ended up,
Mhm.
getting like literally the prime location in town. It's a 2-block town. Nothing is ever for sale. Nothing is ever for lease. I made a phone call. This lady was like, I'd be happy to lease to you. And I felt this prompting to stay really patient and really just kind with her. And 2, 3 months later, her real estate agent calls me and is like, do you want to buy the building? And it just led into this crazy, crazy synchronicities between who the builder ended up being. The guy who built my house on Kauai ended up moving back to Washington, and he built the property out for me. And like, just thing after thing after thing, like this is, where we were meant to be. And so when we left Kauai, I even just like told my kids, like, we're gonna go back to Chelan for a little bit. And I had come back. So we had like been on vacation, went home to Hawaii. I figured, I didn't know I was gonna buy the building, but like I figured out a location where we could do my business. And I wanted to come back and see it in person, and I wanted to see if the schools were quality for my kids. And so we came back to Chelan a month later for me to like explore it all. And then it all fell into place that I never went back to Kauai. I went back like in October, months later, to like pack our house up. And then my husband came by like November. He had to finish up some jobs. But moving here felt really divinely guided. Like it was like, yes, I want you to be here. And then, long story short, when I bought the building, there were 2 storefronts, and I was like, what should I put next door? And then I asked my best friend if she'd open a boutique with me, and we opened that first because it was less under construction than the other side. And I've never felt more at peace. Like I've always called Chelan my place of peace, and moving here, it's got all 4 seasons. It's like beautiful. The summers are hot, the winters are snow. It's actually snowing today, which is really random because it's been sunny all week. But yeah, like I think it's important that we take note of our environment. That's like a big part of my work. Like I've been consulted by couples before when they're like, we're not feeling right where we're living, but we don't know what to do, because they've watched my journey and my boldness to say, I'm living here and then I'm up and moving here. And then like, I'm not afraid of that. And I
Mhm.
think that's an important part of our journey is like, do we love where we live, and is it right for our body? Because a lot of people will grow up somewhere and their nervous system is regulated to that space, to
Yeah.
that town, to that thing. And they don't know how to get out of it because
Yeah.
it's all they know. And other people are like, by the time they're 16, they're like moving to New York. Everyone has like a different thing.
Yeah.
But moving here has brought me a lot of peace, especially balancing all the businesses. Like there's so much nature here in the lake and that, so
Okay.
we love it.
All right. So, and you may have already answered some of this, but tell me, as you look back on life, give me like 3 defining moments in your life.
3 defining moments. Definitely all of my children's births. I did natural home births. And so I saw the power of my body. I saw the power of who I was as a human being and what I was capable of by myself. There's no one that's going to get that process done but you. I learned so much through that. Gosh, pivotal moments, huh? This one's pretty vulnerable and I don't know, but like there was a hard point in my marriage where, you know, we were rocky and had a couple months like where we were living separately and it changed everything. The commitment level that we came back to was exactly what we needed. And I think that's one of the scariest things in marriage is like, is this like working and what is the commitment here anymore? And when you bet, you know, we've been married for 10 years at that point, and I didn't realize that sometimes having the separation provides clarity. A lot of times, you know, we might, you know, and it was very short because the commitment was so strong. And then so any of the doubts that were in there before that separation caused a coming back together, that now there's like there's no doubts. You know, we have this foundation that needed to be shaken. I think that's something that people forget, is that our foundation has to be like shaken in order for us to know what is what we want and what is not. And so when coming back together, we have this like inside joke that like it's a 10, like it's a 10, that's where we want to work on this. And that was really pivotal. And I think back on that time a lot and how much courage it took, because I was the one who kind of asked for it. And I think being brave enough to ask for your needs to be met and the way he rose up to meet them and just everything was insane. And then I'd say moving here to Chelan would be my third, and opening these dream businesses that I felt called to. Like when that acai bowl shop like popped in my mind, or like this partnership with my friend that I own this business in. Because before this, I did do women's retreats, this energy work, you know, coaching, all of that. That was my business previously. And then being called to this like brick and mortar and these physical businesses, because part of my gifts and things I love is like beautiful design. And so our spaces are like stunning, like my restaurant space. And then we have this huge pergola in the backyard. Executing all of that, having people show up that, you know, like I told you, my builder from Kauai came over, like the gifts that I have and what I was being asked to do, I feel like we're supported. And I think that's something really special, that when people listen to themselves and take a leap, you might find like what comes up and supports you, rather than staying small and like, oh, I have to do this really like tactically and practically. And like, I don't know. So those are probably my 3 big ones.
Okay. Thank you for sharing about the marriage. That was really, I appreciate that.
Yeah.
We did, you don't know this. So my wife and I were missionaries to the family for a decade here in the States. And we had to raise support, and we would walk into your, you know, you and your family's home to talk about our ministry. And we would just share the struggles that Jill and I had in our marriage and how God changed us. And what we found is as we became transparent and vulnerable and shared, other people shared, and it connected us. And some of our dearest friends in life now are from way back
From that,
when we walked into your home, really not knowing who you were and saying, here's our
right?
story. And
Those are huge parts of our journey that a lot of people navigate alone. I mean, statistically, you know, there's a lot of things that happen in relationships that you don't even know is happening. Like with the percentage that high, it's got to be someone, you know, like whether it is affairs or this or that, you know. And it's just like when you're navigating those trials there, it's so nice when someone like, you know, you and your wife have that vulnerability to say, we're human, we have these things, and someone else can, oh my gosh, you have them too.
that's right. Yeah. And
yeah,
Yeah, and it's fun. And anyway, we won't talk about me. I could go on and on about that. And so, I want to dive in. I two more questions. I want to dive into more of the on the coaching, how you got there, because you did it. Well,
Mhm,
so you're doing the coaching and the women's retreat, and then
mhm,
you moved and now you started opening up two retail shops,
mhm.
and now you still have that, but now you're back to coaching. How, what
I
happened?
think it's kind of like your ministry, like you said, like helping people is what makes me feel fulfilled and whole, and being in those vulnerable situations with people where their deepest, darkest parts that are blocking them, that are holding them back, need a stage, need a safe place, need somewhere to be explored that's non-judgmental, that's not, whatever. I think sometimes when I'm buried in my businesses, there's always so many tasks and so many things to get done. And I'm very proud of those. In fact, no, they're supposed to be part of my life. But I also was given so many gifts that I felt like I was wasting and ready to step back into, because I had a friend ask me if I'd be willing to do some sessions with her. And I was like, I would love to. And waking that part of me back up, I was like, one, I'm really good at this. And two, like it's life changing for the people who get to experience it. And it's really, for me, most important for them to have a relationship with themselves and with the divine. And sometimes we haven't. Oh, my little things are going crazy. Are you seeing this?
I'm seeing this.
My Zoom emojis are like going crazy. That they can have a chance to connect to a space that sometimes they've forgotten, like sometimes we have simple tools about, I don't know, like, well, I don't know. I find a lot of people don't have practices that get them centered into their knowing, asking themselves questions, asking for that guidance. They
Mhm.
just practice behaviors and externally, like, try and execute everything and think through it. But remember, if their body's communicating to their thoughts, those aren't very clear thoughts. So
Right.
let's clear the body so that we can like have clear thoughts. And so the power of coaching has drawn me back in, because I just don't know if, I've had a lot of failed coaching experiences where I didn't get what I was hoping from it.
Hmm.
And so far, all of my clients have had like extreme success, like crazy things happen. They have the next pivotal thing in their life come out, like crazy. And I'm like, why wouldn't I be offering more people this opportunity and gift again? And then I've been really interested in maybe doing some speaking, or having we're in strategic coach, like having some kind of program that people can come to, or gatherings like that, like where it's speakers and stuff. It's just reignited my passion about helping people and being able to, coach them into having the life that they want.
Yeah.
So
Okay. That's good. How do you, all right. Two more. All right. I'll ask you the easy question first. What
okay.
does success mean to you?
Ooh, this question always gets me. For me, success is listening to me. And that has been a long journey as a human being that just kind of struggled with knowing that my knowing was important to me, and that I have a divine plan here, that like I have a purpose. And when I was worried what other people's advice was and following that and going externally, um, I find actually a lot of failure. The minute I listen to me and the way that I think it should be done, it's smooth, it's flowy, it's easeful. I mean, sure, I hit my limits, but I know my limits, so I'm familiar with them and whatever. So for me, success oftentimes is listening to me. And then I would say, like, business wise, or gosh, what else is my definition of success? Again, I'm like a huge mind, body, soul person. So like the body feeling calm is success to me, because entrepreneurship is very high stress sometimes. And when you live in an anxious state, again, you're just not making clear decisions. So for me, success is having like a calm presence in my body, being able to regulate and come up and down off of those things, because it's totally normal to go into a heightened state. But do I have like tools? Like that's like, I remember someone asking me this. Oh, I think it's in one of our strategic coach books about success. And I found my definition really unusual compared to what most people's success is. But as a highly sensitive person, I have a lot of wisdom, I have a lot of knowing. And when I listen to that, my success is like 10 times faster than if I like try and follow the rules that someone else tells me. And I think
100%.
everybody has that really great inner compass or that voice or their connection to the divine to work with, to know what their thing is, what their next step is. And I love teachers, don't get me wrong. Like success can be learning
Yeah.
from another, but you need to listen to when what you're learning isn't resonating. You have to be able to be like, oh, that's not working for me. I'm going to pivot, you know?
Yeah. Well, no, I do know, because a lot of times people have barriers
Yeah.
that keep them from achieving, because they need that they need to find a breakthrough. They need to find something. Sometimes it comes from a book. Sometimes it comes from getting out in nature. Sometimes it comes from, dare I say, stop thinking and start feeling and going, wait a minute, what? All right, good golly, my wife. I mean, I've learned after 33 years of marriage to trust her gut instinct.
Yeah.
Even when it makes
That's
no
right.
logical sense, right?
Like when I said not to use that plumber, I wasn't wrong, honey. That's what happened to us when we were building. I was like, I don't have a good feeling about this. And then it went all went to crap. And I was like, told you.
Yes. Yeah, seriously. And it's that we fight against,
We
but
do.
when we can embrace that, that's when we find the breakthrough. That's when we get the flow, the ease, the
Yeah.
rush. We went last weekend, we went to a waterfall in Hot Springs and just watched the water come over this thing, and it was so peaceful, and the sound, and
Yeah.
just to stand there and look at that waterfall that flows 24/7, 365, going, that's
And what
amazing.
does it have? It has momentum. It has pressure. It has all those things. But what was the feeling you felt? Calm.
Yeah.
So that to me is success, is that I can ride waves. I can have things coming in, you know, like through business, right? Or whatever it is. But like for me, success is being able to stay like peaceful. And I'm still like learning all of my tools and whatever. But that's what my coaching is about, is like, how do we get ourselves to this really regulated space so that then our messages, our light, our, you know, truth, our being can be a part of our business, a part of our relationships, a part of whatever you're looking to work on.
Okay.
That was the easy one or the hard one?
That was the
What's
easy
next?
one. That was the here's the one that gets everybody's. How do you want to be remembered at your funeral?
I want to be remembered as a really bright light, as a disco ball that walked into a room and just brings really good energy with it. I want, you know, my legacy and my memory to be that she lifted people up, that I wasn't afraid, that I had the hard conversations, that I faced life with a lot of vigor and determination, and I was unstoppable almost, you know, like, but I was true to me, that like you didn't, you know, I think I've learned, especially in the last 5 years, what it means to be me and what it means to act like me instead of being worried about the other, because there's usually it's in relationship that I had that issue. And so like I want to be remembered for being like that bold light that followed through, that experienced life to the fullest. Like I know a lot of people admire the things that I do, because not only do I do my businesses, but I travel a lot. I take time off. I'm really good at resting. You can catch me napping, like this crazy things that I'm up to. I try and find a lot of balance with that. And I want to be, you know, remembered for the opposite of like great and like hard, you know, like I want to be remembered for somebody who was genuinely present with you, because that is something that I know I have a gift in, and people feel it, and it means a lot when they acknowledge that. And so I would think that at the end of life, that's what I would hope they would say.
Okay. That's great. That's great. Um, okay. How many people do you work with right now as far as coaching, and how often do you have a client a month or 16 clients a week? I mean, what
So
does it
right
look
now I've been doing one-off sessions. I was actually thinking of launching a new mentor package, a new coaching package, so that someone could continuously work. Like I said, been opening these brick and mortars for the last 3 years, started to pick this back up probably 6 months ago. And I have at least like 2 clients a week where they just have like a 1 hour session. And about 3 of those are return clients where they've booked multiple sessions because they have such high success that within a month, they're like, can we do another one? I think we can clear some more stuff. I think my limiting belief is rising up again. Like, let's get on this. So I'm actually going to be offering one-on-one mentoring where it's like a 3-month intensive where, you know, we work together weekly or bi-weekly, being able to kind of create that growth path so that you can see success, that it's within a time frame, and that you feel supported through the ups and downs of it, because nothing is linear. You got to ride the waves of all of it.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I'm moving back into that. And then I do have a goal. I actually have a deck. It's kind of like a little self-help set of cards where if you're stuck in a moment and you need a tool, like, you know, like get some fresh air, get grounded, like,
Right.
you need to write down 3 things you're grateful for. I've been in process of creating this deck for about 6 months, and I got my sample. And so it's called the invitations, and it's just these invitations to invite people back to like themselves so that they can work from that clarity and that peaceful state. So we're not making decisions from chaos. And so this year that will be launched. And so I hope to do some events with that and maybe some speaking with that. I've had requests for retreats since I've stopped doing them. My ladies are always like, what? But hopefully moving back into all of it. I've been setting up my brick and mortars to be successful without me so that
Right.
I can move into this again and yeah, and do it. So
I like it. The invitations.
the invitations.
Very interesting. Okay, well, no, I like. I mean, because I mean, who wouldn't like to have a set of cards on their desk that if I'm stressed or anxiety or whatever, I can just pull out a card randomly, right? Pick a
Yeah,
card, any
randomly.
card.
Get a card. And it should be a positive prompt to help you, you know, just get back to your center. Like, oh yeah, I can do something like, because sometimes when you're in your chaos, you can't think of what to do. You're like, oh, I got to answer this email. I've got to call my partner back. I've got to go pick up the kids from school. But like the card is not necessarily a hour-long thing. It's literally like, go put your feet on the ground for a minute. Like, think of 3 things you're grateful for. Like, yeah, it's really fun.
That's good because it's all those things that we're like, well, yeah, yeah, I should do that. Yeah, just go do it. Take your shoes
Yeah.
off, go outside, feel the dirt, and
Touch some dirt.
it's amazing. Go listen to a waterfall.
Oh, that's the best sound.
It really is. It really is. Okay. Anything I haven't asked you that you need to tell me? This is fascinating. You've got an interesting.
I know we haven't even scratched the surface.
Well, we haven't. That's the beautiful thing. I mean, so here are some of the ideas that have hit me as we've just
Okay.
talked.
Okay.
So people come to you for the coaching because they're dare I say they're stuck. They've hit a barrier of some nature.
Yeah.
You help them untether. Help them find that breakthrough, discover what their body's telling them, in a sense.
Yeah, because a lot of our disease, our symptoms, is our body trying to communicate.
100%. I mean, I'm pretty sure most of our diseases are our body trying to tell us something.
Yeah.
And we're not listening, right?
Correct. And sometimes that's the thing though, like that's not what's taught in school. You're not being taught that like this ache or pain or this stomach ache is a sign of this. So that's what a lot of my clients is about. It's like, let's give you some foundations. This is how you listen downward and inwards that, you know, like, oh, when my heart is racing, it might mean that I need a pause.
Yes.
Instead of just like feel it and get the flutter, and teaching them even just that sacred pause. Like I was working with a group of women at a gym recently, and it was called Radiant Revolution. And a lot of these women, as part of their New Year's practice, were going to stop drinking alcohol, right? Do a little cleansing that way. And what they weren't realizing is like that sacred pause, which we talked about a lot, was like, how can you stop before you intake something and consider it nourished? Like if I'm going to have my sip of water, can you train yourself to remember that everything you're putting in is nourishment or not?
Mm-hmm.
And if you sacred pause, you can make a second. So many thoughts happen so fast in our brain, but oftentimes we don't pause to think. And so we were talking about this concept of this pause. And these women were having the craziest epiphanies just being able to pause before taking action and stuff like that. Like, I just don't know if we've been given the tools, because I don't think our parents or generations before us had time to pause. They didn't have, they were working so hard, no judgment there. But for generations, whereas I think back in a lot of olden times when we were really close to nature, we would communicate all together and we would ask these questions and kind of work with it differently. So, anyways, yeah.
No, that's good. And the pause is really good. I've got a phrase, because I'm always on a pathway to maintain my health, my body weight, and all that. So my phrase is, what goes in goes on. And it's that little thing that every time I look in the cabinet and I see chips, I'm like, oh, those would taste good.
Yep.
But they wouldn't look good on my waist.
No.
So it's
exactly.
it is that little pause that
But
I've
you notice when you start listening that way, and even if it's a silly phrase like that, you know that the chips might taste good, but then eventually they don't really taste good, because eventually you are, for me, when I take that sacred pause and I want to eat something like that, when I don't pause and I do eat it, and then I also get to ask questions like, oh, how does that actually make me feel when I do that, or
Yes,
whatever. So I love that. I love that little phrase. But a lot of people just don't have tools or access to those tools, or aren't practicing them, or they need a one-on-one coach to be able to ask them about it.
Well, they do, and I love how you've got the longer 2-3 month thing to come back, because sometimes we break through a limiting belief, but then it's so deep in us, it comes back.
Oh yeah, and the crash. You can reach something and then it can swipe the rug out from under you, where it's like trial after trial about that thing will come up, and it will be the next thing where you're like, are you really going to overcome this limiting belief or not? Did you ever read is it called The Great Leap?
I've heard of, I've not read it. Yeah, something like that.
Something like that. That one talks a lot about that, where you have your glass ceiling and you got to like break through it. But, we've never been up here. So then the old part of you is like panicking and,
oh, you don't belong up there. Let me pull you back down. It's like, no, I'm good. Yeah, all of that.
Yep. We've both been through that a lot in entrepreneurship. I can feel it for me.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. It's funny that I was watching something the other night, and they were surfing out in California, and it hit me with something you said about going against your barriers. But then if you're surfing, you're swimming out against the waves, but then you turn around and you catch a wave, and now you're surfing in its glory. That's what happens in breakthrough.
Yeah, it does.
And it's all of these analogies and things.
And it's lonely if you're in your own head trying to do it alone, right?
Yeah.
Like, it's cool to have support through it when you can. When you can.
And most people, I tell people all the time, you've got to have coaches in life, because in business, I'm too close to my company to make great marketing decisions.
Right?
So I have outside.
I feel like that all the time. I'm like, I think I know. And then I have to consult someone. And I'm like, oh, I have no idea. That's a great idea.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's so much faster. You get breakthrough so much faster when you have an outside set of eyes. That's why people should work with you to get that breakthrough so much faster, because you've seen so much and you just have 1 or 2 tools. That's all they need to go, oh, you're kidding me. Is that why I feel that way? Uh-huh. Let's go figure that. Let's go fix that. Let's go.
Absolutely.
So, all right. So you've got flow and you've got leap. I've got 2 thoughts as far as just big ideas that for me, I'm trying to encompass everything. I don't like one of them. I'm going to tell you what it is. Years ago, it was Admiral David Farragut. I looked him up the other day. He's the guy who said, "Damn the torpedoes, full speed ahead," right? And he was going, and that's one idea that hit me, is torpedoes be damned. Is that the torpedoes that are coming at us are our limiting beliefs, right? And
so much of it is internal, rather than we think it's external. They're doing all this to me. They're but it's a lot of self-perpetuated stuff.
It is. But we're going to press forward, but we have to take care of those torpedoes. We've got to deprogram, or we've got to do something, right? But they're always coming at us. And that kind of works. It's a fun analogy. Everybody understands the phrase and everything. But I don't think that's the right one. but that's kind of the analogy that I'm trying to work with here,
Mhm.
because but what you talked about was you talked a lot about flow.
Mhm.
We talked a lot about barriers,
Mhm.
and we talked a lot about breakthrough.
Yep.
Um, we've talked about sometimes you get a breakthrough and sometimes you stop it, and then you got to find it and you go again, and all of that. And nature, you're out in nature, right?
Mhm.
You love Hawaii, you love all that. And
Mhm.
so the concept that came to, the big idea that's coming to me is um, breaching the dam.
Mm.
Because think about a dam. What does it do? It takes a
Right.
river and it stops it up. It has a purpose.
Right.
Okay. So sometimes our limiting beliefs, sometimes where we are, the things that are
They're
something that
keeping us
have a,
safe. That's their whole job.
it does. And at the same time, so a dam has a purpose, and the water that's there serves a purpose. Yet when I breach a dam, I open it up purposefully. I let the water flow. I have breakthrough, and now
Mhm.
I'm going. And where I live, there's a couple of them. Well, they're dams, I guess, for ships and barges. They
Yeah.
come and
Yeah.
they dam up the river, and they either raise or they lower the water level for
Yeah.
the
Yeah. Ours
so
does
it
that
can.
too here on our lake. Yep.
Yeah. So as you're going to the next level in life, we might need to breach the dam to build you up, to get rid of some of those things
Mhm.
to get there. And now that you're up there,
Absolutely.
we're gonna we're gonna open the dam again. We're gonna let it flow so that everything just works so much better.
Isn't that
And
true? I love that, right? Because we do have to grow to a certain point to then let it overflow or open. And sometimes we find ourselves sinking and it's like so below and we're being held back and we don't even know it, right? Like all of that analogy is so true.
100%. Yeah, it is. And what I find in a big idea is you take that concept, and now you can talk about breaching the dam in 1,000 different ways. You can tell stories
Mhm.
about how you've helped clients and they've come to you all tied up, and we help them connect the body and the mind, and then we open their dam and it just flowed, the
Right.
water flowed, the ideas flow, they went to a new level, all of that. And it's a concept. Everybody knows what a dam is. Everybody gets it, it just
Right.
instinctively. And now we just take that and we transfer it to how you help
Concepts
people.
that I do. Yeah. Yeah.
And people go, oh, well, that makes total sense. And then the cover of your book is obviously like a big dam waterfall or something like that, and
Yeah.
breaching the dam. I don't know. That's where I kind of see it. In what, 30 or 40 minutes, going, got an amazing story here. It's how do you connect all that instead of saying I'm a healer coach or I'm a spiritual. I mean, dare I say blah blah blah. Do you know how many
Right.
websites are out there doing that? And they
Literally.
all say the same thing.
They
It's like,
do.
no, I'm different. I'm going to connect with you here, and we're going to help unpack
I like how you said like
open.
untether almost, right? At the beginning, that was a great word I love and use
Yeah,
a lot. Like
yeah.
that really.
And I mean, so it may not be breaching them, it may be untethering. Who knows what it is, but it's that
I know.
idea that you're stuck, and we're just going to let you go free, and you've got a process,
Yeah.
and that's
My podcast is called Break Free with Jill Pollard. There we go. It's in
I
there. You already had it. You knew. That's what we're
yeah.
about.
So you know, and and it could be your book is break free or breaking free. It could be
Yeah.
that. It
But
could be.
I like the DM analogy. Like you said, it makes it relatable, makes it a place to tap into it. There's a concept there that you're like, can understand. And I'm sure there's so much money that goes into a dam that I could use like as analogies. My husband's been to the dams here. I haven't for the tour for the classmates, but I mean like
Okay. Now I don't know anything about constructing a dam. Okay. But think
yeah,
about it. You got a body of water and you're going to build a dam. You got to dig down deep to build the pillars to pour the concrete. Isn't that,
literally,
isn't that what you do?
literally.
You help people dig down deep into their heart and their soul and their
Yeah.
body. That's it. Once we
Yeah.
find that,
And some of those pillars are things unbeknownst to us from childhood, from whatever. Like there's so many parts of this that could be analogies.
and aren't the best books and podcasts and stories really just analogies that we all grab onto and go, oh, yes,
I
oh,
get
I
it
get that.
now. I
It's
get it now.
and that's what it
Totally.
is. Yeah. So
Yes.
that Jill Pollard, I think is somewhere. I think we're in the right world with either
Yes.
damming or tethering or breaking free, that's your big idea that
Yeah.
we'd have to wrestle with to really nail it and then let everything flow from there. But that sets you on a course to go, here's what I help you do really. And you
Mm,
do it in a dozen different ways and you can tell
right.
1,000 stories around it, but it's something I'm going to get immediately. And
Yeah.
I won't do mental gymnastics,
To
as I call
figure
them,
it out.
when I
Yeah.
read your website and go,
Which is a huge part. Yeah. Yeah. That's always the part where you're just like, how do I write about this? How do you write about limiting beliefs and how do you
yeah,
explain to them how it works?
that's right.
When the analogy really gets it tethered into like a tactical and understanding of like, oh, I wonder what my water, what my, yeah, like we talked about, like what all those, like people could start to put it into pieces of curiosity for themselves, which
Yeah.
then just helps more people.
Well, it really does. It's really funny. Do you remember those paddles that had the ball, the tethered ball,
Yeah.
the big thing, right, as a kid? It just hit me when you said that, and you're doing that. And I had one time and the string broke. And the ball was free. The ball broke free. Isn't that
Yeah.
what you help people do? People who
Yeah.
are tethered, I
Tethered,
help you break free.
literally.
You could send people those paddles with, the string cut and no ball. I help you.
Yeah. That's what I'm doing for you.
Yeah. But I really think based on your nature background and all of that, I like the dam analogy because it flows. I mean, you could take walks and talk about bodies of water, and I mean, you
Oh
could
yeah, because even like if we're trying to get them to a flow state, what's the biggest analogy for a flow state? A river, right?
absolutely,
Literally.
yeah. So I think that's the direction of your big
I love
idea.
it.
So
I love it.
I'll let you run with that. Okay.
Okay. I love
Um,
it.
that's what we have for Experts Speak today. It's a really wacky, different podcast, but it was really fun to get to know Jill and get your background, your understanding, and how you help people, not just business owners, but people
Yeah.
find that breakthrough, get back to the state of flow, and release the energies that are inside of them, make those connections by breaching their dams.
Heck yeah.
I love that.
I love
Jill,
it too.
thank
Thank
you for being
you.
my guest today.
Thank you for having me.
You are welcome. This has been like super fun. All right. Tune in again next week for another great episode of Experts Speak.